"You can take my teddy, you look sad." Those simple words from a little girl in the park carried more power than years of therapy or wealth could ever give. It was a quiet afternoon, the kind of day when the world seems heavy despite the sunshine. The CEO, a man people knew as powerful, untouchable, and strong, sat alone on a park bench, staring at nothing and yet at everything. His expensive suit and polished shoes couldn't hide the weight in his eyes. To the world, he was successful, commanding, someone to be admired and feared. But inside, he was broken, battling losses, disappointments and loneliness that no one could see. He thought he had built an empire, yet he realized he had built walls around himself, too high for anyone to climb. Just then, a small figure walked up, holding a worn-out teddy bear that looked loved beyond repair. A little girl, no older than 6, with hair tied in messy pigtails and eyes full of kindness, looked at him with a curiosity adults had long forgotten. She saw not the CEO, not the powerful man from magazines and television interviews, but a sad soul sitting alone. Without hesitation, she held out her teddy bear and said, "You can take my teddy, you look sad." He blinked, stunned. No one had spoken to him with such innocence in years. People came to him for deals, for favors, for power. But this child offered him something so pure, comfort, with no strings attached. He tried to smile and shook his head gently. "That's your teddy, sweetheart. You should keep it." But she pushed the toy closer into his hands, her little fingers brushing against his. "Teddy makes me feel better when I'm crying." "He can make you feel better too." Those words cracked something deep inside him. For the first time in months, he felt tears sting his eyes. The truth was, he had been crying inside for a long time, silently, where no one could see, and here was a little girl, unafraid to acknowledge his pain, unafraid to give away her most precious belonging just to make a stranger smile. He took the teddy, his hands trembling. It was soft, warm, and carried the faint scent of childhood. Suddenly, memories rushed back. The days when he too had small hands, big dreams, and a heart unscarred by betrayal, greed, and endless battles for success. He realized how far he had drifted from the boy he once was. In that simple gift, the little girl had given him more than comfort. She had given him perspective. She reminded him that healing doesn't always come from wealth, status, or power. Sometimes it comes from kindness, freely given, without calculation. He looked at her and whispered, "Thank you." She smiled, as though she had just saved the world, and skipped back to where her mother was waiting. The CEO sat there with the teddy in his lap, and for the first time in years, he allowed himself to breathe deeply. People around the park walked by without noticing, but he knew something inside him had shifted. A child had reached a place no adult could. Later that evening, when he returned to his office, he placed the teddy on his desk. His assistants and colleagues glanced at it curiously, but he didn't care. That small, worn bear was now his most valuable possession. It wasn't just a toy. It was a reminder that even the strongest can break, and even the smallest can heal. Days turned into weeks, and the CEO found himself changing. He began to soften with his employees, listening more, understanding their struggles, and showing compassion in ways he never had before. He funded projects not only for profit, but to uplift communities. He started spending time outside the towering glass walls of his office, reconnecting with people, with life, and with himself, and every night. When he saw the teddy bear sitting in his study, he remembered that one moment in the park. One child, with no knowledge of his titles or wealth, gave him what no one else could, the gift of being seen, of being cared for. The world would never know that a CEO heart was healed not by money, not by power, but by a little girl who gave away her teddy bear because she saw sadness in his eyes. And maybe, just maybe, that is what true healing looks like. It comes when we stop pretending to be invincible and allow ourselves to be touched by kindness, even when it comes from the smallest hands. So, if you ever wonder whether a small gesture matters, remember this story. Remember that healing doesn't always come with grand gestures or heroic acts. Sometimes it comes with a simple sentence, spoken by a child in a park. "You can take my teddy, you look sad." Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for inspirational and motivational purposes. Any resemblance to actual persons, events, or situations is purely coincidental. "You can take my teddy, you look sad." Those words echoed in my mind, soft yet powerful, innocent yet healing. spoken by a little girl in the park on a date. When my world felt unbearably heavy, I had everything a man could ask for: wealth, reputation, and a name that carried power, but none of it could fill the silence in my heart. I sat there on that park bench, hidden in plain sight, wearing the armor of an expensive suit, while inside I was shattering. No one around me knew that the CEO they admired was drowning in loneliness, regret, and a gnawing sense of emptiness. I thought I had built an empire, but all I had really built were walls too high for anyone to climb. And then she appeared. She was just a child, no more than 6, with messy pigtails and a teddy bear so worn it was clear it had been loved beyond repair. She looked at me not with fear, not with calculation, not with the eyes of someone who saw a millionaire, but with the eyes of a child who saw sadness. In her small world, there was no pretense, no masks, only truth. She walked up to me and without hesitation held out a teddy bear, saying, "You can take my teddy, you look sad." For a moment, I was frozen. I didn't know whether to laugh or to cry. No one in years had spoken to me with such honesty. Everyone around me always wanted something: money, favors, power, but here she was, offering me her most precious possession with no agenda, no expectation. I tried to smile, shaking my head. "That's yours, sweetheart. You should keep it." But she insisted, gently pressing the toy into my hands. "Teddy makes me feel better when I'm crying. He can make you feel better too." And with those words, something cracked open inside me. I felt a sting behind my eyes, a lump in my throat, the kind of vulnerability I hadn't allowed myself in decades. For the first time in so long, I felt seen. I took the teddy bear with trembling hands, and suddenly I wasn't a CEO anymore. I wasn't a public figure. I wasn't the man behind the empire. I was just a boy again, remembering the days when I too had dreams and love before success hardened me. That little bear carried not just softness, but a reminder of innocence, of comfort, of kindness. "Freely given?" I whispered, "Thank you." She smiled, her job done, and skipped back to her mother, as though healing a stranger's heart was the most natural thing in the world. I sat there for a long time, staring at that teddy, realizing that a child had done what no advisor, no deal, no achievement could do. She reminded me I was human. That evening when I returned to my office, I placed the teddy on my desk. My assistants looked at it strangely, probably wondering why a symbol of childhood sat in the office of a man who dealt in millions, but I didn't care. That bear was more valuable than gold to me. It was proof that sometimes healing comes not from what we own, but from what we give and receive in the simplest of gestures. Over the days that followed, something in me began to change. I softened with my employees, I listened more, I smiled more. I began to notice the struggles of those around me, and for the first time in years, I didn't just see workers. I saw people. People with families, with hopes, with fears. I started new initiatives in the company, not just to build profits, but to uplift communities, to bring genuine change. And each time doubt crept in, each time the old hardness threatened to return, I would glance at the teddy bear and remember the little girl's words. "You can take my teddy, you look sad." She had no idea she had given me back my life. She had no idea she had pulled me back from the edge of becoming a machine that only cared for success. She had no idea that her kindness would ripple into hundreds, even thousands of lives through the decisions I would make differently from that moment on. But that's the power of kindness. It doesn't measure, it doesn't calculate, it doesn't ask whether the act is small or big. It simply gives, and sometimes the smallest act carries the greatest weight. The world would never know that a CEO, a man admired for his power, was healed by a child with messy hair and a broken teddy bear. But I know, and I will never forget. So when you walk through this life, remember this story. Remember that people are fighting silent battles every single day, battles you may never see. And sometimes all it takes to heal them is not money, not power, not a grand gesture, but a simple act of kindness, a word, a smile, a teddy bear offered in a park. Never underestimate the power you hold to touch someone's life, because that one moment, that one gift, may just save them. And if a little girl can heal a broken man without even knowing who he is, imagine what we can do if we choose kindness every single day. Disclaimer: this is a fictional story created for inspirational and motivational purposes. Any resemblance to real people, events, or situations is purely coincidental.